Welcome to Spinning Back Clique, where each week here at MMA Junkie, we take a spin through the biggest stories in MMA. And on today's episode, Yadong defeats Henry Cejudo, but the fight is mired in controversy. Anthony Hernandez defeats Brendan Allen. That's 7 in a row for Fluffy. A UFC champion has relinquished their belt this past week, and that caused a huge trickle effect. We'll discuss that. Hello, everyone. Gorgeous George here on the con, and look at the distinguished panel we have for you today. We got Goes from MMA Junkie Radio. He's in Las Vegas. Danny Segura is back with us. He's ready to go all the way from Miami. Nolan King joins us from the Northeast, Boston to be exact. Cold coffee's on the ones and twos. Guys, let's get to it. The old UFC gloves are back, and so are the eye pokes. Henry Cejudo was the recipient of one of the worst eye pokes ever, a 2-4. It happened in round 3, but since he was able to continue and finish the round, the fight went to the scorecards where when between rounds 3 and 4, Cejudo stated he could not continue due to being unable to see. He said he was seeing double. Let's get a reaction from the Boston shot caller, Nolan King. You're batting leadoff.
Yeah, it was not the way you want to see any fight end, right? And I think a lot of times when there's these weird circumstances where something happens and a referee has to get involved and there's mass confusion, it can stir up a lot of disappointment. And I think that was a big factor in some of the criticism that was thrown Jason Herzog's way. Granted, it was a confusing situation. Ultimately, I think he did handle it pretty properly. I still have some questions about exactly what went on, mainly the fact that he decided to, kind of take it to that, to go to the judges' scorecards versus having it a no contest, or, deeming that it was the foul. That I just felt like there was a lot of there was some confusion, but it was kind of cleared up online. Big John McCarthy, I think, did a very good job of explaining the entire thing on there. And I think ultimately Herzog did get it right. It was a disappointment. I was kind of a little not bummed out, but I would have liked to see Dana White maybe have some openness about running this one back. I know maybe it's not the most thrilling matchup. Maybe we figured we kind of knew where it was going with the success that Song was having. But I do think when something like that happens, I wouldn't hate giving the fighter the benefit of the doubt who was fouled. Like, that was kind of a stinky situation, right? To be poked in the eye and then not be, because of that foul, lose 2 rounds that you could try to rally, you could try to get a finish. So to me, just kind of an unfortunate situation all around, not how you want to see a main event, because that card was pretty good, right? And that would have been nice if that fight was exciting and continued to play out. So ultimately a bummer. I think Jason Herzog, did do a fairly good job there of handling the situation. And I guess we just move on and this is kind of in the rearview mirror now.
Nolan, do you think Dana's reluctance comes from maybe Henry might have been trying to game the system?
I mean, that's certainly the implication that I think when fans have a disappointing fight go down in front of them, right? We saw that reaction from a lot of people saying he quit. Oh, he was fine to fight the minute and 10 seconds between the foul and that end of round. This, to me, Dana kind of non-commented that question, which I think sometimes silence can be deafening, right? Like, was that the implication that he wasn't necessarily happy with Henry kind of asking to get out of the situation? But to me, man, if you're sitting there, your eyes on the line, like, you can't see, now you're not protecting that side of your head from taking more damage. You don't know what's going on. I mean, that's a scary thing, right? Like, getting poked in the eye and not being able to see. You don't know how much damage is there. So I can't fault Henry. Clearly, he posted pictures. There's some damage that's very visible there. Never mind the damage that you can't see. So who knows what Dana's kind of take on that would be. I would like to have heard like a follow-up question just saying, kind of what's your view of a situation like that? Should a guy try to keep going if he has blurry vision? But we didn't get it. So who knows? I guess we move on from here.
Danny, what was your reaction to the fight, how it played out, and of course the ending?
Yeah, so I've been on vacation, so I didn't get to see this until after the fact. So I did see first all the commotion online, and then I went and saw the fight. And a couple of things struck me. One, online chatter and what people were saying, specifically other journalists, they made it seem almost as if Henry Cejudo was getting blown out of the water, that he was not competitive in the fight. Then he got eye poked, and I guess insinuating that perhaps he took that as a way out and hopefully get a no contest or something like that, but instead ended up losing a technical decision. I thought the fight was pretty even, in my opinion, and the eye poke was pretty clear. And then, as Nolan mentioned, there was damage there, as seen in pictures that Henry posted after the fact. So, I don't know, man. Like I thought it definitely affected him. If you look at the eye poke and then you look at the action after that, like Henry Cejudo didn't even want to engage. And I do think he was down on the scorecards, not getting blown out of the water, but all throughout he was pressing, he was getting hit. I mean, he was getting complimented by the commentary from for his chin. And all of a sudden he gets eye poke, and then the fight changes quite rapidly, and he's all of a sudden backing up, wiping the eye, like it was clearly bothering him. Also, keep in mind that when this guy fought, was it Marlon Mirage for the vacant belt? His leg wasn't even working. He was getting kicked, and yet he was still trying to find a way to win. That's just in his DNA. So I really do believe Henry Cejudo that he tried his best to make it work, and it just didn't. It just didn't. At the end of that round, he couldn't see, he couldn't continue, and then he ended up losing a technical decision. And I think this is a good moment to kind of revise this rule, because here there's a clear foul. The fight is stopped because there's a foul. There's an illegal move being done, and the person affected by it can't continue fighting, and then ends up losing a technical decision because of it. When he didn't do anything wrong. This was on Sung Yadong, and obviously it wasn't intentional, but still a foul is a foul. I don't know, man. Something about this whole situation just doesn't sit well with me. I do think we need to revise those rules and make a change so that we don't feel this way. It just feels like Henry Cejudo didn't get a fair shake. So very, very bizarre situation, and I'm really curious to see what your thoughts are, GG, as well as Goes.
All right, Goes, you're up next, man. What'd you think of all this? There's a lot here, you know what I'm saying? So unpack it.
Yeah, so there are a lot of things, and I agree with a lot of things Nolan and Danny are saying too. And thank you to Big John McCarthy, such an anchor in our sport, to be able to share his time and come out and kind of explain that, because even people who have been watching the sport for such a long time, we don't know every single rule for every single situation. It does get kind of confusing. So I was kind of with Nolan with Nolan in the beginning. I had thought, well, okay, was it really Jason Herzog's job to kind of direct this towards the fourth round? I was a little confused with all that as well. When you think about things like gambling, right? What if I had the fight ending in the third round or the under or something? Like, our sport has grown so much that these little things now affect so many things. And that's what makes me so grateful for some of these refs and these judges that we do have. I know sometimes we come at them, but look, a guy like Jason Herzog, I don't know that very many referees in this world could have maybe called this situation the way he did. And in the end, Big John McCarthy said he would have done it the exact same way. The one thing that, with what Danny said that I agree with is maybe it's time to kind of look at this situation and maybe fix it for the future. Because me personally, I'm not a big fan of going to the cards in that situation, because look, I mean, Henry Cejudo, when have we ever really known him to be a guy that quits in the middle of a fight? This is an Olympic gold medal winner, winning 2 titles in MMA. Like that, you don't do that being a quitter. And don't forget, like, we're talking about the damage to the left eye. He also got poked in the right eye as well. So, I mean, anybody that does that to yourself right now, it's going to take a while for that to clear up. And this is a very dangerous sport. So I wasn't too big of a fan of people saying he quit. I don't have a problem with seeing this fight happen again, but I will admit, I thought Song Yadong was winning the fight. I wouldn't say he was mopping the floor with him, but I thought he was winning. So if we do it again, I'm okay. If they move away from it, that's fine. But I would kind of like to see this rule talked about a little bit more and just maybe fix that for the future, because I just don't like calling it up until the moment what we have. That doesn't really make too much sense to me.
Yeah, and okay, so Henry's very smart. If you watch any of his YouTube content or whatever, when it comes to game planning or when it comes to criticism or praise, he's usually on point with it, man. And outside his division, doesn't matter. Even when he was retired, is he cringe? Yeah. Does he know the ins and outs? Probably. I think he's earned the respect for us to not think he's just gonna quit and play the game. I think he was right in asking Jason Herzog, are you going to take something away from him? His corner could also be doing that, but it's called working the refs. Jason Herzog at that point hasn't decided if he is or if he isn't, but I don't think he's doing it to figure out the math in his head. If he does, and I'm down, this score, I get a draw. I don't think he's doing that. I think he's just trying to honestly say, hey, look, man, I got kicked in the nuts. I got another eye poke. And then he gave me a twofer. Like, that was pretty bad. And get this, guys, what I didn't like was by Jason not taking away a point. Did you notice Song was right back at it again? And that's something that John Jones has also done to his advantage. The fingers are out there, and if they're not telling them, they're working it. I think that registers within you as you're in the fight. You're going, damn, like there's those fingers again. So I think the refs have to admonish them. He really didn't tell him to put the fingers back away. It was like another minute and 16 that they fought. So that was a little disappointing coming from who I think is the best ref in the game right now. John said he called it perfectly. I didn't like that he didn't take a point. I also didn't like that he didn't admonish him for the last minute and 16. Now, to be clear, if Henry at that moment, when he was sitting on his ass, working the 5 minutes, whatever, he's entitled to him. If he had quit at that moment, it would have been no contest. That's according to the rules, but also Mark Ratner told the commentary crew that that's what would have happened. The minute it reached the end of round 3, whether he sat on the stool and didn't get up or whatever, they were going to the scorecards. It's just a technical decision that they have to make by starting and quitting the round, giving them a 10-10, which the judges did not put down that extra 10-10 on their cards. That's why you had scores that look like a 3-round fight. But I agree with what Danny says. Okay, maybe at that point he didn't know it, right? And when he tried to compete, he realized it. Could Jason still go back? I'd have to ask Big John that question. Could Jason still go back at the end of round 3 and say, we're still going to call it a no contest? Here's why. How many times have you seen like a quarterback in football says, I'm all right, right? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden he does a play and then he realizes, nope, get someone in here, because as I started to compete again and my blood started moving and, and the adrenaline hit me, all of a sudden I realized I am jacked up. And I think that's what happened with Henry Cejudo. He realized it. He ran. He couldn't see. It sucks that, there's a huge contingent of fans that always thinks the worst. Instead of maybe siding with the fighter or the benefit. And again, this is a guy who I felt has earned that benefit. So, man, just disappointing and all. And then when I see Dana White not want to do it again, in covering him for so long, I can just tell he's mad about something. And I think he must think it has to do with the Cejudo side, because Cejudo wants it and Song wants it. So I'm thinking, just do it. Now, that said, I also think that this was probably Song's fight to lose. It just seemed like he was getting stronger and Henry was wilting. The wrestling was non-existent. So, I think it was headed in that direction anyway, but you never know, guys. You never know in this sport. Yeah. Who was it? Jair Rosenstruck versus Alistair Overeem. Colby Covington was up 2-0 on Usman. Usman flipped the whole thing and kept this title.
Leon Edwards of anyone in this sport. Yeah, correct. If anybody's ever proven it's not over till it's over, it's that guy.
I think Dominic Reyes, didn't we all think he was 3-0 on Jones?
Just stay within the same division, stay within the same guy. Marlon Moraes, Henry Cejudo. He looked battered. He couldn't even walk, remember? Then he went out there, shook it off and then ended up winning the title. I don't know. I think it's crazy. And if you go back and look at the fight, it's clear that he's trying to shake it off. It's clear that he's not all right, and it's clear that he's just trying to buy himself some time, and clearly time couldn't fix the issue, and he couldn't continue.
I think what hurt him was him playing to the crowd, him smiling, and so then the crowd's thinking, he's up to someone. He really wasn't. I think it's just in his personality, honestly. He's entitled to those 5 minutes, and he got a double, man. So he's probably trying to clear up 2 things on the heels of a nut shot, which they said may have grazed the side or not, but he did get another one. That's just a lot, man. That's just a lot to take in. So I was
just to jump in here. I think there's way too much focus on it being an accident versus not. Like, we heard Dana White at the press conference say, well, did you think he poked him in the eye on purpose? And I'm thinking, if you're in football and you hit somebody helmet to helmet, they don't say, well, he did it by accident. That clearly wasn't on purpose. So we're just not going to give him a penalty. We're going to give him a warning. Right. So for me, I think there's a certain amount of judgment that comes into it. We don't see eye poke points taken right off the bat often, but I would like to see that. I would like to see that kind of cultural change, because I don't understand why a foul that causes a real impact and change in the fight is just, oh, that didn't really happen because he did it by accident. Like every other sport, somebody does a foul by accident. If it impacts the play, if it impacts like, I know in like the NHL, if there's, injuries and stuff, it can impact suspension. So to me, it's, I don't know. I think there's too much onus on like, well, he didn't do it on purpose, so we're just not going to take a point. And that just enforces careless behavior, So to me, I would like to see that. And then the second change I'd like to see is us to be able to kind of maybe hear from the commission's explanations. I know this sounds like we're just a broken record here. I appreciate John McCarthy helping us out as somebody that helped write the rules and is super plugged in, and somebody that all these commission people really look to still to explain things. But I would like to hear kind of from these commissions as to, or even if they just post a statement, like if they don't want to have conversations with media, they think it's going to turn into an argument, post a statement explaining it, So I just like to see that sort of cultural change as well. I think those two things that I walked away from this fight with.
100%.
According to McCarthy, he was saying that even the ABC and their description of it isn't accurate compared to the unified rules that is done by most of the commissions. And he was saying Washington's a commission that doesn't have experience, and that's why they didn't tally those 10-10s that they should have in round 4. Not that it would have mattered, right? It just makes everything 10 points more, but you could just tell from there. That's just a minuscule
detail. Like, it doesn't change anything. Okay, well, he lost, he would have had 10 more points, but the results would have been the same. I'm with Nolan on this one. Like, and that's something that I think you vocalized well, Nolan, and something that's been bothering me a lot because I watch other sports and I don't care if it was intentional or not. The point is the guy can't see. Whether it's intentional or not doesn't change the fact that there was damage done and he couldn't continue fighting, and that needs to be punished because it's an illegal move and it affected the fight.
Correct. And intentional or unintentional can either lead to the disqualification or not. So yeah, you can still take the point away without disqualifying him. And therefore, again, then he'd probably tuck those fingers in because he wouldn't want to risk it again, because on the next one he might get disqualified. It'd be like 2 yellows equals a red. So yeah, so much happened in this fight. I think it's fair for them to run it back. And I don't think either one is on the cusp. Like, I don't think Song's saying, hey, look, man, I'm on the cusp of a title shot. Although we never know, but just run it back. A lot of disappointment here. It goes also hit another thing. Like, I'm sure it affected gambling for some people. Maybe their parlays go from 3 to 2, from 4 to 3. A lot of things could have happened in this fight. What round does it end? All that stuff. So
yeah, I wonder if you bet the fight or a winner by decision, does it still count?
Right.
No, that's a
technical decision, right? But
yeah,
no, technically it does.
How about the money? Like, for fighters, if this were boxing, they still get paid. They get their money. If this were football, they still get, baseball, all that. But in MMA, we have so many fighters that still, win, loss, your money, that plays a factor in all these things too, which kind of sucks for the fighters.
Real quick, Danny, you want a rematch or not?
It wasn't the greatest fight ever, but like, as you mentioned, what else is Cejudo gonna do, right? Like, there's not much for him. Look, if they run it back, I wouldn't hate it. If they go separate ways, I wouldn't hate it either. I don't feel too strongly about either.
Goes?
Yeah, I'm the same. I don't feel too strongly with it, but I do feel like, why not? There's just really not that much else to do, so why not do it?
Nolan.
Yeah, I'm about it. Throw it on, main card of a pay-per-view or something, second fight on the main card. Has come in with a little bit of a storyline, settle the score once and for all. I'd be for it.
We'll see what happens. Like I said, both fighters wanted it, so maybe this one's on the UFC. All right, moving on to topic 2, the rest of UFC Fight Night 252. It was nuts, man. They threw down out there in Seattle. Anthony Hernandez does it again, 7 in a row. What's next for him? And is he a future champion? What do you think, Danny?
Yeah, I mean, this guy clearly needs to step up. Like, Brandon Allen is quality, obviously, but like, he probably doesn't have the name as some others in the division. I want to see him against the top guy. I really do think this guy's trouble. He might not have the prettiest style, but like, look at the champion. He didn't have the prettiest style either, and he's the best and undefeated in the UFC. I think Anthony Hernandez is the real deal. I think he's the dark horse of that division, and I want to see him get a big fight next. Not skill-wise, of course, but specifically name-wise. Say it is a Robert Whittaker or someone of that stature. He needs a big opponent and a good placement. Because remember, he wasn't originally the co-main event. He ended up being the co-main event because of the injury of Dominic Cruz. So I want to see him get a step up all kinds of way, promotionally, name-wise. I think this guy deserves it, and I do think we got to start considering this guy as a potential future champion. Against him versus Drake is like, I don't know. I mean, if he could do that to Brendan Allen, I think he can do that to a lot of people. He's almost like the Cain Velasquez of 185. So, yeah, this guy's legit, man.
Yeah. What do you think, Oz?
You know, I love me some Fluffy. I thought what he did was tremendous in that fight because I did actually think that was a pretty tough Brendan Allen that showed up. Future champion is hard because you know, when you look at Fluffy, you look at his game, who could you say he wouldn't really give trouble to? Like, he's in every fight that you put him in. The question is, can he get to it? Because now he's going to be fighting the upper echelon of that division. I think he could, but something that Danny kind of alluded to, I don't know that the UFC really wants that. It seems like maybe Fluffy doesn't fit that mold, and I don't know that they promote him the way that they should. So when that happens, you look at situations and you go, okay, well, usually they match him up with somebody else that fits that mold. And another guy that fits that mold is Jared Cannonier, right? So when they brought up that matchup, as soon as they said it, I was like, dude, that's probably going to happen because I don't know. I feel like you could be pushing Anthony Hernandez a little bit more. We've interviewed him plenty of times, and he's fun, man. He's fun to talk to. Yeah, maybe he doesn't fit the UFC mold the way some of the other fighters do, but I think he could turn that around. I mean, did Nate Diaz and Nick Diaz really fit the mold? No, but they turned into stars, right? Jorge Masvidal. I think Anthony Hernandez can kind of have something similar, and I think he's got this little cult following behind him. But that dude's cardio, man, he doesn't go away in fights, and it's amazing, dude. Every fight, I'm excited when he's on the card.
What did Dana White say about Nate Diaz? He's not a what?
Needle mover.
Needle mover, yeah. He read that one wrong. He's done it before. He's gotten a lot right, but he's been wrong before. But I like me some Fluffy as well, man. That nonstop grind. And he said he did it on antibiotics. And I think he hurt his ribs or something. Nolan, what did you think of his performance?
Yeah, I think he looked great, and especially middleweight needs contenders. I feel like there's a lot of monotony there. Fresh contenders, I should say. They've had the same contenders for a long time, but the two names that, just looking at the rankings and you know, not to repeat Goes and Danny, but like Whitaker, Cannonier, those guys, I think it's a beneficial fight both ways, right? It's a fresh matchup for those guys that have hung out at the top and kind of fought everyone, especially for Robert, you know, an ability to maybe get back on the horse. Then for Anthony, you know, it's sink or swim. Like, you've done great. Here's the big fight that you've wanted. Maybe it's you know, a half a step higher up the ladder than just kind of the next step. But here you go. Let's see how you do. And so I think either of those names would be you know, pretty big for both guys involved in it.
Mm-hmm. Anshul Jubilee's gas station in the comments section says Paulo, meaning Costa, has been hinting that he's fighting Jared on X for a few days. Hustlebone says, y'all think Fluffy goes top 5 after that W? Pretty close, if not that. So he's up there, man, for sure. It's a nice streak that he's on. Karate Ted Toon says Fluffy against Marvin Vettori. I like that one, but I think 7 fights in a row. You now deserve a former champ. I think Danny said it. That just seems to really, really like put you over. And that's what Borayo needs, and that's what Hernandez needs. Because think about it. When Dricus beat Whitaker, we all went, oh shit, this guy's for real. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what everyone's saying about Nasruddin Imavov. And yeah, maybe they're catching those guys at the tail end, but we're still saying it. There's something upon beating either a former champ or just someone that's been at the top. And I think the UFC should realize it. And I think the other guys, honestly, you know that that's their role, because that's what happened to them. Remember, why did Izzy fight Anderson Silva at that point in time? I mean, you know, it helped obviously elevate his stature. Keep the comments coming. I will try and get to them. Remember, we're making up a little lost time. Apologies for the late start, but we ask that you bear with us. These things happen in MMA. All right, couple quotes there from pop culture. Rob Font, guys, how about this one? What'd you think, Danny? This guy seems to have found the fountain of youth there in his upper 30s up in Montreal.
It seems like it. Now, Just to clarify, I didn't get to watch the whole fight. This is one of the fights that I'm still catching up on, but I did see highlights and obviously just the results itself. Like the fact that Rob Font has been able to bounce back and he's now on a little win streak going on here at this late in his career. Man, I love it. It all indicates that whatever he's doing at TriStar, it's clearly having an effect. We see it in him, not only in the results itself, but like he just feels like a different fighter in there. He feels that fire's back. And yeah, I like what I'm seeing so far from Rob Font. So you know, I know the bantamweight division is a tough one, especially if you're 37 years of age, but man, he didn't look 37 in his fight against Kyler Phillips. And in this one, which I've seen some highlights, I've yet to catch up fully on it. He looked pretty good. He looked like he was marching forward and putting on the action here. So I like Font at 135. And I think he's having a nice resurgence.
Goes, I don't know about you, but what impresses me the most is his takedown defense, the mechanics, right? The wrist control, the underhooks. Even when he gets taken down, he's getting up, sweeping guys off of Kimura. Like, I mean, his ability to not sweat it on the ground and get back to his strength of striking, you could just tell he's improved leaps and bounds.
Yeah, physically and mentally. And, you know, don't forget, like, this is a guy who had a completely different opponent, a completely different style to prepare for. So it's very hard to even judge him on the performance he gave us, because it's difficult to adjust to having that change. Having one of your best friends, you know, he had to see Calvin Kattar kind of go through a rough time the week before. He went through a lot of adversity in this fight. So to pull the dub, whether he looked great or not, I think that was the most important thing, but there's definitely improvements in his game, and I like what Frost is doing for him. I hope he continues to do that.
Nice to hear him also shout out Tyson Chartier, who's still his manager, who got him up until a certain point, and now he's just looking for a different look. And the Boston shot caller, he's near that camp. He's from that area. I'm sure you're impressed with the fellow New Englander.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's hard for a Boston guy to give Montreal some credit due to our hockey rivalry. But yeah, he's looked great since he's gone up there. I think he's fought a lot more confidently. Like, you know, his aggression's there. He's done a really good job of not getting – he's been hit, but he's done a good job of I don't want to say taking the shots well, but that was a big problem for him too. If you go back and watch the Jose Aldo fight, the Marlon Vera fight, he wins like the majority of the time of the fight and then would get rocked like pretty much every round and it would lose it for him. So whether that's defensive changes, whether, you know, maybe he's, I don't know, figured out things with his body to make his chin better. I'm not really sure, but he's looked great since he's gone there. I would say one of my biggest takeaways from this fight was, how did this not win fight of the night? Like, no offense, you know, Manifield, Julius, you know, Walker, good for them getting the money. But to me, like, I was very surprised that this didn't win the 50K. I don't know if it was, you know, what it was. I thought that last sequence in the third round there was awesome. I don't remember a fight having people, you know, that excited in the arena for a back and forth sort of fight rather than a knockout. So those are kind of my takeaways from it. But one way or the other, I think Rob Font, good gig for him, kind of sitting as a, you know, I don't want to call him a gatekeeper, but like, if he wants to be a prospect killer, I mean, that's not a bad gig to have at 37 when you just signed a new contract too. Like, rack up some wins, you know, prove to people again just that you're not going anywhere. So good for him. Seems very happy, which is a big part of this as well. And let's see what they do with them next. If they throw him back up the ladder, or if this is going to be what his thing is now.
Good stuff from the Boston shot caller there. And all I can think of for the criteria for fight of the night might have been gassing. I mean, what impressed them about that one, like you said, than this one? Because those guys were huffing and puffing through the last 7.5 minutes. And yeah, they stood there, they went to the end, and you know, they threw some bombs. But I thought the other one had way more intensive action, and they weren't as gassed. But anyways, all right, John Silva, man, who wants to start here? They got themselves a potential star, and them fighting nerds are out of control. Back to Danny.
Yeah, I mean, that 3-2 combo was disgusting. This guy's the real deal, and he's got that sort of Poatan aura to him. It's different, but in the sense that, like, he doesn't really need to have like English, or he doesn't really need to have lines or be able to communicate with the fan base. He does that with his fists, and just like the character, like that crosses that language barrier very much like Poatan. So yeah, this guy's a star. I want to see him against somebody ranked at this point. Like that guy's just built for action. You literally close your eyes, just put all the ranked featherweights in a bucket, pick a name and in a hat, pick a name, and you got a fun fight. This guy is awesome. Plus, he can fight at 155 too if needed be. This guy's legit, man. I want to see him fight every other month if possible, and it seems he's about it too with the new contract that
Can he win a title?
that's coming up. So yeah, this guy's spectacular. Zero, you can't hate on this man. This guy's awesome.
You think he can win a title?
I think it's too early to tell. I want to see him against a technician, say like a Giga Chikasi or somebody that's a little bit more refined, and then I'll be able to tell you. But if you look at those hands, it kind of reminds me of Ilia Topuria a little bit, like the way it connects. Like there's like, it almost seems like he's made out of steel, and they come with a lot of momentum. Certainly, he's skilled, he's nasty, he's got power, he's a tough dude. But you know, one thing is fighting the guys that he's been fighting, and others, you know, is coming across the Lerone Murphys, the Josh Emmets, the guys that are tough, hit hard as well, but are also very technical. So I think it's too early to tell, but is he among the, even though he's not in the official rankings, is he among the best 15 in the world? I do think he can beat anybody in the top 15 on his best day.
Goes John Silva, impressed? Can he win a world title?
Yeah, he's the judge's best friend, right? They can go get a hot dog and a beer. They're never needed. I mean, how do you say that a guy that keeps putting people to sleep can't win a title? I think there's a lot of potential there. But if you watch like his post-fight interviews and stuff, and I know his English isn't the greatest, that dude's got a lot to talk about. He's a very interesting guy. And I think if somehow the way Poatan has been able to still captivate audiences despite not really speaking much English, I think he can kind of do something very similar because the dude's got a lot of personality.
What do you think, Nolan?
Yeah, tremendous. I mean, again, that team, the Fighting Nerds, is just, I have trouble wrapping my head around how they all are so different, both personality-wise, style-wise, but they all have that common link, which is that they're extremely interesting and really exciting to watch, and they finish fights. And so I'm not surprised that happened on Saturday. I'm honestly a little surprised they didn't give him more of a step up in competition, but he went out there, and I think he even exceeded our expectations of what he was supposed to do to Melsik. So really, really impressive win, has really thrown himself into that mix, and is somebody that I think the UFC can really promote. I mean, you could throw this guy at this point in time, you give him the right opponent, you could throw him in a main event. So a big win for the UFC, big win for Jean Silva, big win for the Fighting Nerds. And they won our team in 2024 of the year. They're starting off 2025 pretty strong too. And now they got Carlos Prates coming up in Miami, and who knows what Kyle Barallo is up to as well. So, just saying their names though, we're like looking forward to these fights. I think they've done a great job of promoting themselves.
We might have to do a part 2 on the Fighting Nerds, because back then it was just the beginning, and right now we're like on title cusp for a lot of these guys. So shout out to those guys for sure. And a big shout out to Lazy Bed. He sent us a super chat. So thank you very much, Lazy Bed. I should have got to this sooner, but again, I'm trying to play a little bit of catch up here, but fist bump to you. Thank you for that. Anybody that wants to put in a super chat, I'll get to it right away going forward. He says, shout out to the panel. Cold Coffee, OH. And I think Kenny just said IO. And Kamikaze as well. So he's giving some love to the guys behind the scenes, the guys that make us look great. Those guys are awesome. We move on though. All right, topic 3. Oh, no. A quick highlight, guys, real quick. 10 seconds. Danny, who else impressed you?
Ricky Simone. Talk about another veteran, like still, getting the results, dude. That was a nasty knockout. And it's always nice to see, like, when a veteran's a little bit down and come back, you see the emotion, like, of that feeling of winning again. So yeah, that was nice to see.
Nolan?
Mansour Abdul Malik, I think for me, he's looked like a great prospect. He's had the tools, but he's going to be a problem now. I think him overcoming adversity a little bit that's a big check mark on my checklist that I have to see to really believe in somebody. So big win for him there against a tough guy.
And some trash talk too. I like it. He's got an edge to him. Goes.
I don't know if I can do it in 10 seconds, but I'll make it real quick. I'm a big fan of respect in combat sports. I've always been a fan of the touch of the gloves. But that being said, you can never trust anyone. What happened in that Rob Font fight, if you go back and look at it, I don't really think it's so much on Font. But I'm telling you, one day a fight's not going to go somebody's way because of this. Do not trust anyone. Don't complain when that shit happens.
All right, I will give a shout out to Seattle. 18,000 came strong. It was loud. A shame for the UFC. The UFC should be ashamed for waiting so long to get back. And it looked like Dana had to eat that one because he was like, I've only been here for a city and my head's spinning. Sorry, I've only been here for a day and my head's spinning. He loved being out there and he loved soaking up the crowd, but it was loud. They kept calling it like comparing it to the 12th man in football. So shout out to them. Andre Feely, I wanted everything for this guy. You know, this was his home state, but to go down to a submission, a guillotine choke, especially when Team Alpha Male, that's all they specialize in. That's all they do to everyone else. So they're all well versed in defending it. I couldn't believe he went out to that, but oh man. All right, we move on. Topic 3. Ilia Topuria vacates the UFC title. That's right. What an avalanche of fight announcements this past week. Lots to cover here, but the biggest, of course, was UFC undefeated champion Ilia Topuria relinquishing his featherweight title and electing to move up a weight class. UFC 314 is April 12th, by the way. And now we're going to talk about it. Danny, what the hell just happened here? Topuria is out. Volk versus Diego Lopez is in for the undisputed. Your reaction?
Yeah, I'm pretty surprised this happened because he just knocked out Volkanovski, then Max Holloway. We're talking about, is he the best featherweight of all time? Can he join that conversation with Aldo, Holloway, and Volkanovski? Did he get himself a seat at the table? This and that. And I think we're all in agreement that like what he did was spectacular. And honestly, it didn't really matter who he fought. He just needed a couple more title defenses, and we can have those conversations. Yet he's vacating the title. Which is very, very surprising. Again, I was on vacation when this all came out, and I had to really double check everything and make sure I was reading the right thing because this is crazy. I think it's crazy, especially because we don't have anything booked yet for Topuria. It's not like he's going to 155 and fighting Makhachev. We expect that to happen. That's what he wants to happen. But yet, nothing is official. I think they're still working out some things. But yeah, very, very surprising. I thought he was going to stick around, especially because there was options for him, especially because he was on the verge of making history. I mean, he already made history, but on the verge of really doing something great and reaching something that a lot of people haven't in such a short amount of time. So honestly, I don't like it. It is exciting, I got to admit, but I don't like it. I think him at 145, at least for a year more, would have been the move. But here we are, and it certainly makes things interesting.
Now, Nolan, if it's the weight issue, we get it. Health, always first for the athletes. But Evloev and Lopez would have been nice to take them out and then feel like he really did clear out the division. Would you not agree?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think, like Danny said, this was just over across the board. I think this was one of the crazier Dana White random hop on Instagram sort of announcements that we've seen in quite a while. And this was obviously the headliner, no pun intended. I would have liked to see Topuria defend a couple more times if his weight and his health allowed for it. If that's why he is moving up, I totally don't blame him at all. Surprised to see him move up and not try to go for that double champ status, but who knows what the UFC is going to come, what they want him to do at 155. I know Dana has been non-committal to the Makhachev matchup. Granted, I think that's the one that everybody wants to see. I think when a guy's coming up, with having held the title, never lost it in the division below, I think, especially where lightweight's at right now, it would make a lot of sense to do that fight. If the UFC has something else in mind, I think this makes kind of even less sense to me, but it's interesting, man. It's totally shaken up the division at 145 and 155. I know we'll talk about some other things, but we've have Patricio in the mix now at featherweight, so who knows where he fits in. We've got Movsar, who the UFC doesn't necessarily love his fighting style, apparently, kind of sitting there having semi-earned a title shot, but still probably going to have to fight again. So really interesting times at both 145 and 155. I think it's just totally different landscape than one week ago, right? So it's exciting, man. I'm actually very fascinated by the whole thing, even though I would have liked to see Topuria stick around.
Me too, man. 1 foot out the door in the chat says Lopez, yes, no one cares to watch Evloev fight, but he is undefeated and he would have deserved a shot is all I'm saying. And he beat Lopez too. And I'm not hating on Lopez. I'm just saying, you got to give Evloev his respect, whether he's exciting or not. Goes, what was your reaction?
Very surprised. Not a huge fan of it, but like you said, if if he can't make the weight and his body's failing him, I get it. You know, we want these guys to be healthy. But if it's more of a thing that it's just difficult, then I would have said possibly kind of what Danny said. Put up with it for one more year and maybe put 2 more skins on the wall. Now you're really cementing a legacy at 145. Those are the things that I think you get remembered for. And that just never goes away. You know, when we're talking about who the greatest featherweights of all time, who the greatest bantamweights, lightweights, all that, to be able to have those skins on your wall that you already have and then add a couple more, I really think would have cemented things. So if it was just difficult, I would have said put up with it for a little while longer. But what's done is done. And I'll be honest with you guys, like, it's hard for me to pick against Islam Makhachev, against anyone, but Topuria does kind of have a style that would make it interesting. So I'm kind of all for that. But at the same time, I don't know what his longevity will be in that division, because to me, he does seem a little undersized for 155.
Hustle Bones in the chat says his weight was not an issue at all. So I don't know if he's implying he's going for the money or the legacy or whatever. I had heard that he had difficult weight cuts, and he is thick, but he's also on the younger side versus we hear this more in the later stages of a fighter's career. Nothing's for sure, but we have heard rumors that if this happened, it could happen in International Fight Week. At the same time, we know Sarukian's kind of out, and we thought maybe Oliveira might be next for Makhachev. So who knows in what direction they'll go in. Masters of the Universe Classic says Emmett versus John Silva, book it. I'm more concerned about the John Silva. I really feel like this guy's chasing like Diego Lopez is chasing, but this guy could be involved in some title talks towards the end of the year as well. And that's what I really think of John Silva. But guys, do you think is that the right move for Topuria to match up with Makhachev, Danny? We can't hear you.
Mute, Danny. You're on mute, Danny.
Sorry, I'm still speechless about the whole thing. No, look, I just said it. I wanted to see the guy at 145, stay at 145. So is it the right move? Like, it's not the move I want to see, but like, I definitely can't say it's not exciting, you know. And certainly, like, if you were to,
well, I guess what I'm asking is, should he get one warm up and then the title fight? It sounds like Dana White supported the move, so there's no bad blood there. You know, I don't think he's leaving them hanging or anything. Somebody in the chat had implied he wouldn't be ready for 314, but anyway. I
think Sarukian should be fighting Makhachev. He is the #1 contender. Yes, he got injured and he couldn't make the fight, but he didn't lose. He's still the #1 contender in my eyes, but we know how the UFC operates, and Dana, whatever happened, didn't really like it, it seemed, and you know, he's not getting the shot anymore. So if that's the case, like, I know a lot of people are clamoring for Charles Oliveira, and people love Charles Oliveira, and I'm a big Charles Oliveira fan, but I want to see more. I mean, he got one win after losing to Sarukian, and it just doesn't feel like the #1 contender to me. I wouldn't mind seeing Topuria get the next shot. I think if he's gonna vacate the 45 belt, which he did, F it, make the fight. I think for history's sake, I mean, it's just insane, knocking out Volkanovski, knocking out Holloway, and again, big if, but imagine if he were to knock out Islam Makhachev. I think that would be the greatest three-fight run of all time. So F it, for history's sake. It would kind of feel like a champion versus champion fight. There is some history there. Ilia has been talking about him for a while. Why not? Why not? I do think that's the most interesting title challenger for Islam Makhachev right now.
That is crazy that you bring that up, because years ago there was a whole thread on greatest runs ever, and there's some good ones out there, including one by my guy Dan Henderson. He took out like 4 legends in a row. One was maybe a half legend, or maybe not even a legend, but still a former champion. It was around the time of Fedor and I think Shogun. But yeah, that would be an incredible run if he were to pull it off. Listen, I'm sure Danny and Goes and Nolan maybe feel the same. If not, we'll move on. Do you guys want to see it right away or not, guys?
Sure. Fuck it.
That's literally my feeling. To sum up everything that I just said,
I mean,
sure, fuck it, just do it.
Put like, you know, Ilia versus Makhachev in front of me, I'm gonna be pumped. So I don't know, mix and match, like Danny said, Islam, Arman, Charles, and Topuria. I think with Topuria giving his belt away, I feel like we just need to do the super fight right off the bat. But if the UFC is going to change course and they are going to give it to Arman next, I wouldn't complain either, considering that he did previously earn it.
I think from a business standpoint, it just makes sense to put those two together. I know Sarukian and Oliveira aren't going to like it, but you know, here's the thing though. The other side that we maybe haven't talked about is what does Makhachev want? Because really, is fighting another featherweight going to help him? Is that going to make him happy? I mean, isn't that the criticism from him? So I don't know what he really wants to do, but I'll say this much, man. When Volk fought him the first time, a lot of stuff that worked for him are stuff that Ilia Topuria is really good at. So I wouldn't be shocked, Danny, if he did pull it off.
Goes, who do you like?
Coaches have been telling me for fights now that they love that fight, and they've saw that first fight with Volkanovski, and they're like, "Yep, we can do that and better." And you can even make a case that his compact frame, because a lot of people in the chat, and rightfully so, are saying he's undersized. He's undersized. It might even help him in this. There's less of the person to grab from, right? There's less to grab in terms of Makhachev trying to tie him up. So I actually think it's a very interesting fight, and I think Ilia has a good chance in winning. Obviously, he would enter as the underdog, but I do think he's a live dog in that one. I think he's got a better chance than any top 55er right now, probably. But just one thing real quick, George, I do want to say, let's not forget, he does have a win at lightweight in the UFC. He beat Jai Herbert. When was this? 2023. I know he's not a top contender, but he has a victory in that division.
Well, yeah, okay. I mean, but you're not making it sound like that's what gets you to the title, though, right?
Well,
I think what he's done is the featherweight.
He can have success at 155. He already had some success.
All right, fair enough. Who do you like in Volk and Lopez early on? Goes
early on. I gotta lean with Volkanovski, man. That guy. It's kind of interesting though, because you got to figure out where he's at after the things that have happened to him. But I think even with things not really working out for him as of late, I still think he's one of the best in the world, and I think he'll probably have Diego Lopez's number.
And over a time off from back-to-back knockouts, that time off was probably good for him, but he also aged a year. Nolan, who do you like early on?
Yeah, my brain tells me, Volkanovski should win. Granted, hopefully his chin has recovered from, I guess it's tough to tell, right? Getting punched in the head by Islam and Topuria, like back-to-back, not great, but those guys, they're not bad guys to get knocked out by if you're going to get knocked out by somebody. So tough to say, but Diego's run just seems magical, man. I just keep having this like thought in the back of my head that he's going to somehow get the upset, whether, he does test the chin of Volk or whatever. But I think Volkanovski should rightfully be the betting favorite. So I'm going to lean with him for now, but we'll circle back in a few weeks and see if I'm still there.
Danny, I hope you like Volk too. That way I know I'm going to gain on each one of you in the staff picks, because I'm all over Lopez. But who do you like?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think I'm not going to let you get that point just yourself. I'm with you. Lopez is just getting better and better. His momentum. I think this sport is all about momentum. Volkanovski is coming off 2 knockout losses. Hasn't fought since a year ago, since February 2024. And look, if we've seen anything, like if the last year or so has taught us anything, is that there is a generational change happening right now. We saw it with Asanya. We saw it with Cejudo. We've seen so many of these veterans that are 36, 37, 38, just taking an L to the guys that are, stepping into their prime, the guys that are 28, 29. And I think this is a perfect example of that. So if both these guys were to face prime, I'd pick Volk. Volk is certainly a lot more advanced technically, but, there's a lot more to that. So I'm going to go with Lopez on this one.
Is Lopez slowing down in that Ige fight in round 3? Is that a concern? There's going to be 2 additional rounds here. Volk's done the fight on
short notice. It was supposed to be 45. He ended up fighting at 160 against the guy who had a full camp, who was going to fight in about 2 weeks. I mean, it was like the worst circumstances ever, and yet he was able to put off a win. And then he fought Ortega to a decision, so it's not like we didn't see him go the distance. I have no concerns about his cardio.
Okay.
I have concerns about when he actually trains. He's at every event, no matter where they go. If they do UFC Mars, he'll be there front row.
That is
when
true.
Does he actually train?
That is true.
How about Poetan? He's out there cornering people on the opposite side of the world. He's doing seminars. Then he goes to a Drake concert. It's like, bro, hop on that Zuffa plane or whatever it's called, the TKO plane, and get back, man. You got a fight. You got a monster coming up here in less than 2 weeks. And
it's not just UFC. I was in Mexico City for one of my best friend's wedding, and he DM'd me. He's like, "Oh, I'm out here in Mexico City too. I'm at the PI. My student is fighting in Budo Santos, like a local promotion in Mexico City. So he is literally all over the place. He has a house in Vegas. He has a house in Puebla, but he barely stays there. He's all over the place.
Damn, man, that dude, he's pulling it off though. That's for sure. All right, listen, a bunch of other fight news here. Montreal fans, I'm sure you thought the Miami fans would be holding your beer because they had 2 title fights coming out over there. So we can debate 314 versus 315, which card's better, which card's deeper, or whatever. But here are some announcements for you guys. Leon Edwards is now going to take on Sean Brady in London. All right. He was supposed to take on Della Maddalena, but Della Maddalena has been booked for another fight against Bilal Muhammad for the undisputed title. No Shavkat. He's not ready to go. So it's JDM versus Bilal Muhammad at UFC 315, and that takes place May 10th. We got Michael Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett at 314, which is the card that we've been talking about here with Volk and Diego Lopez. That's on April 12th. That's a co-main event, by the way, and it's 5 rounds. And then Valentina Shevchenko against Manon Fiorot. Co-main event at 315. Of course, it's a title fight, 5 rounds, and some other fight announcements that we'll get to. But guys, we're running a little short of time, so just pick one of these. You know what? Out of these main ones here, which ones did you like here? Let's go to you, Nolan. 1 or 2, say something, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I mean, Patricio coming to the UFC was the coolest for sure. You know,
Against
probably, arguably against Jair too. You know, I know they had tried to book that Aljo fight, but I think for fans' sake, like, tremendous fight there. Very intriguing, kind of weird seeing Patricio's name on that graphic, right? Or hearing Dana White have to say his name, even though Dana wouldn't say Bellator, even though Bellator's
another
in the
promotion.
grave. We had the other organization all the way through. So that's cool. And then obviously the other one was the Pimblett versus Chandler. I mean, that's just very bizarre fight for me to process. So those were the 2 I think that I really had circled.
Bellator doesn't even exist anymore. I wonder why he's doing another promotion.
They ain't rivals anymore, right?
Just say it. You guys are super successful. You remember when who was it, man? The guy that fights out of New York. One of the guys was on Tough and he lost. And then I remember Dana and the guys. It wasn't the guy from Bellator. Like, he named it then. You know, when he fizzled out. I can't remember who it was, but it was a long-time veteran of Bellator.
Anyway.
And
they on Tough, they at one point were censoring it like it was a curse word. I think they leaked it out.
Yeah, it's like, come on. Nolan, is Della Maddalena the right call, by the way?
I was surprised they didn't do protest, just because I know he was in the discussion for the December fight when they booked when they did Shavkat and Ian Gary. Like, my understanding was the first option they went to was Carlos. And he was hurt or whatever. So I was kind of surprised they didn't do that. I thought him and Jack probably has a little bit of a better resume at this point. But I thought maybe hey, this Carlos is really promotable, kind of a gunslinger. Like, we could sell that aspect. I thought that they would maybe lean there. But if they're not going to do him, Jack's the next guy. You know, I think it is a little on paper. Maybe people are like, man, that's crazy. He's already there, right? That this is a pay-per-view main event and Jack's headlining. But 7-0 in the UFC, exciting guy. From Australia, like, it's surprising, but given the landscape of everything, it makes sense.
Real quick, what happened to Shavkat? I've been out and I apologize. What happened to Shavkat?
Injury of some sort.
Okay.
From the Ian Gary fight?
I don't know.
Because if it was,
I think it must not have been, but maybe
I wonder if that's a lesson, you know, where they say if you hang back and wait, things could blow up in your face. But now if you do step up and get injured, things blow up in your face too. It's like no one really knows in this sport. By the way, it was Lyman Good was the guy that was on Tough, and when he lost, they go, that's the guy from Bellator. Danny, did you like Fiorot versus Shevchenko? Joseph Boza was kind of shocked that fight was made, but I'm thinking, why? Fiorot's knocked everyone out.
Yeah, and she was also the backup for Noche UFC, if I'm not mistaken, UFC 306 or whatever that event was last September. So no, this was definitely the right move, and I want to see, like, last year 2024 was a terrible year for women's MMA. Like, there wasn't many big fights, there wasn't many defending champions. There was like one title fight per weight class or something like that. I want to see kind of more activity in the women's weight classes. So to get this fight sort of booked now, so we can look forward to it and then start making like title contender fights. Also, Grasso got booked against Natalia Silva. Yeah, I like it. Get things moving. I want to see some action. I want to see the division develop.
You're telling me I rank fighters, and there's that soccer mom that got beat up by Lima Lane McFarland. She might enter the rankings this week if someone retires. Hey, Danny, is there another fight you liked out of all these fight bookings?
Ooh, man, I'm with Nolan. I know I'm repeating here, but like Patricio Pitbull versus Jair Rodriguez, what a fun fight. I mean, this is a dream matchup. If you could like just make a fun fight, this would be it. And also finally seeing Patricio Pitbull in the UFC. I hope it's not a little bit too late because he is coming at a later stage, but this is a guy that's been one of the best in the world, if not the best in the world at 145 pounds for like the longest time ever. So yeah, finally he gets the big stage. And I know Bellator was a fine organization and all that, but like, you know, the UFC feels differently. So it's nice seeing him with that banner over him. So yeah, I'm really excited about that one.
Goes, you like Chandler and Pimblett for 5 rounds? And give me another fight that you like from all the bookings that were made.
I do like that fight. I'm kind of with Nolan where I've played it out in my head multiple times and come up with different outcomes of how it could play out. So that's a really interesting fight for me. I like the Morales and Burns. I think is going to prove a lot about both guys, right? Does Burns still have it? Can he still stick around? And this is probably a step up for Morales, who I think shows all kinds of promise.
Oh yeah.
I like Sandhagen versus Figgy. They're gonna fight in Iowa. It's like a fight night that's coming up. I just like both fighters. I think it's gonna be exciting, both some exciting stand-up fighters. And Pratis, he's got a fight as well against Jeff Neal. So that one should be really, really good. Like tons of announcements came from the UFC, and man, it was huge last week just trying to dissect it all. But you go to the schedule tab on our website and hit 314, it'll tell you who's fighting, you know, in what order, times, all that stuff. So check out 314, 315 and tell me what you think there, which one's the better card. I lean towards 314, but to be fair, 315 does have 2 title fights. And finally, this weekend's UFC Fight Night 253, Manel Kape against Asu Mambayev. Is this a title eliminator, Nolan King?
I think so. I mean, it's right up there for sure. I think both guys don't get the credit that they deserve. Manel's maybe established himself a little bit more coming out the gate. Things were a little bumpy, right? He came in, a lot of hype, rising champ, you know, and then obviously struggled. And now he's like, okay, this is the guy that we thought we were going to get. And then Asu, super under the radar at this point. I know he's only had a couple fights, but he's looked great. So I think it very well could be, particularly if Kape wins. But I will say the Pantoja Kara France fight is not even on the books yet. So time-wise, it may not end up being that way.
Could Kape do something so great that they book him versus Pantoja and maybe leave Kai Kara France off to the side? If I don't think there's negotiation problems or anything like that, but because it hasn't been announced, you just never know, right?
Yeah, you never know. I think if he does do something pretty tremendous out there, which he's very capable of doing, and all of the other things leading up to the fight are okay, because sometimes there's issues there. Definitely. And especially when you give that guy a mic, he's very charismatic. You never know.
Who wins, Danny? Almabayev or Kape?
I'm going to go with Kape. And also, I think for the division, I think he needs to win. The division needs names, and he's a guy that talks trash. He's a guy that's fun. He's a guy that can deliver knockouts. Kape winning is the best thing that can happen to the flyweight division right now, and hopefully we see him in a title fight, man. That guy's had so much bad luck.
Yeah, he plays with fire. He risks it all, but man, he's exciting for sure. And what's another fight you're looking forward to goes on this card?
I like the Chepe Mariscal and Ricardo Ramos fight. I think can be a lot of fun. I think the energy that both fighters bring in their fight could make it a really interesting one.
I love Chepe, man. He makes the judo come alive, like Ronda, like Carl Parisian back in the day. People are going for rides. What did Joey Diaz say when Roy McDonald was tossing Nate Diaz around? He's like, man, that guy needed a parachute because he was not hitting any soft landings. Nolan, another fight to look forward to this weekend.
First fight of the night, Charles Johnson versus Ramazan Temirov. Johnson is one of the, I don't want to say comeback fighters of last year, but he certainly U-turned his career around, had a tremendous year, and I'm surprised that he's not getting more respect, kind of buried on the first fight of an Apex card. But him and Temirov is a really solid flyweight fight. Both those guys I think we'll see in like the top 10 in the next year and a half.
Another highlight. Ahora tú, Danny.
Esteban Ribovics versus Nasrat Haqparast. That fight's amazing. I mean, both these guys go in there and bang. Lightweight is just a very fun division, and just watching Esteban come back from in that fight against Daniel Cejudo last September. It was amazing. And I think he's a guy that you got to watch out for. Trains at a Kill Cliff, great team, young, powerful. I mean, this guy's got it all. So nice step up here. I do wish they probably would have put him. I mean, this fight's so much fun. It needs to have a crowd, right? Like, no disrespect to the other fighters, but I'm kind of surprised this fight didn't end up in an arena, especially Miami, because the guy lives out here in South Florida, and there's a huge Argentine population here in Miami. But here we are. Apex, still going to be a fun fight. That's the one I'm highlighting.
Yeah, man, I like that fight too. I'm a big fan of Ribovics. All right, the one I like is Sam Patterson versus Danny Barlow. More from the Barlow side. Goes and I spoke to him recently. Man, this guy wants to bring swag into this promotion. He was talking it up. Check out the interview on our YouTube channel here, the one you're on right now. So when you're done with us, you hit a like on the way out, you subscribe to the channel, and then go surfing through the videos, and you'll see a lot of the content that all of us have produced. But check out the one we had with Danny Barlow. Goes, we were laughing our ass off, weren't we?
Dude, I listened to it again yesterday. He was making me laugh so much, dude.
Yeah, he's from Memphis, and so he's street. He's street for sure, and he tells you exactly what he wants to do. He wants to piece this cat up and then grab that mic and just tell everyone what time it is and what he's about to do with his career. He's undefeated, so keep an eye on that fight. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in every week to Spinning Back Clique. We do this show every week, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. It's live, and you can participate in the chat. And we reference it when we can, and of course the super chats are always to the top of the list, so thank you for that one. Also, Overreaction Time Tuesdays, the same time. Check that out with host Simon Samano and one of us from the staff as a co-host. And again, a big shout out to Cold Coffee and Kamikaze behind the scenes, definitely always making us look good. They are the glue to the site, so give them a shout out as well and follow them on social media. We're out of here for now. Enjoy the fights this week and keep it locked on MMA Junkie throughout the week. Go out there and be a champion.